Let's get salty!
Hey everyone, Zeddy here again today with a brand new video. And before we get into the video, and I know I've been talking about this a lot, but I've been just going through a rough time personally, and the fact that we're almost already at 21,000 subs just means a lot to me, and your guys' continued support just means a ton. And the way I've been feeling, I just want to thank everybody to know that all the support is appreciated. I'm sorry if I'm a broken record, but I'm just very grateful, and I want to keep thanking you all. So thank you guys for that. But let's go on to the topic of the video. On Twitter yesterday, Iksar went on and basically didn't ask me anything, an impromptu ask me anything, basically saying, you know, ask me questions and I'll answer whatever. And he answered a ton of questions, and I wanted to give my unfiltered, honest opinion on his answers and responses to a lot of the stuff. And before I get into it, I want to say that, you know, if I agree or disagree with something he said, I respect the man. I think he's doing a great job. I'm glad he's being more open, but I thought we'd have an open and honest discussion about this, and maybe some of the stuff, if we agree or disagree, we can give our opinion on what we think could be better, or if he's wrong or whatever. I just want to give my breakdown, my opinion on everything, and I haven't really gone through all these tweets yet. I thought we'd do that together and just give you my honest opinion. Again, this isn't an attack at him. If he agrees or disagrees with something, that's fine. He's entitled to his opinion just like we're entitled to ours, and I appreciate everything he does. And if a certain rep at Blizzard is watching this and thinking this is being negative, no, we're just constructively gonna take a look at his comments and give our constructive feedback on that. So let's take a look at the questions he answered on Twitter. I'm using a recap from Out of Cards. I'll link it below if you want to take a look. We might skip over a couple things if it's not that interesting, but let's try and go over the majority of it. So first, there was a question: do we get anything for being top ranked in BG or standard? It would make me want to grind more, to be honest, like a coin or a jacket. Something small would be nice. And basically, Iksar said he had this dumb idea. He'd love to do that, but fortunately, he's an area he thought could make a bunch of jackets for the best player in each region, maybe every month, 3 months. We do this for every new person. I think it'd be pretty cool to like just give something out like that, like a jacket or whatever. He said, or maybe do it more progressively ridiculous, like a flame printed Hearthstone cruiser or some type of thing. That'd be really cool, and I think it'd be awesome, but I don't think that's really, you know, that's more marketing. I don't think he really gets to dictate any of that, but this is what I've been saying like in prior weeks. Like, the devs seem to have all these cool ideas, but it's like corporate or marketing just don't get behind it, because whether it be like too expensive or whatever, they just don't do it. So I think it's a really cool, dumb idea. He was asked, what are some of the cards over the years you came closest to nerfing but didn't? He said Auctioneer dodged a couple of nerfs for finally getting a nerf. And Malagos was on the Hall of Fame list for 2-3 years. If you watch my 2020 Hall of Fame predictions list, I did have Malagos on there. And I guess they discussed the idea of changing the Warlock hero power early, but they never did really replacement. Warlock historically has always had a really strong hero power, so interesting insight. I'm honestly surprised that Auctioneer and Malagos are still in standard. Thought they would have got a Hall of Fame, but they obviously felt the same, that they were kind of cool and interesting cards and kept them around. Is there a specific card you thought was going to be a bust, but it ended up being a major player in the meta? He mentions Mysterious Challenger and Spirit Claws, and the community missed on that too as well. He ended up saying he was happy with how Mysterious Challenger worked out, not so much Spirit Claws. I'd argue Mysterious Challenger wasn't exactly the healthiest thing in the game. We just did our most hated cards in Hearthstone history list. Challenger was on there. People didn't really seem to disagree, so I'll have to kind of disagree. I think both were pretty big whiffs, but again, the community didn't see either of them being strong, so you can't really blame them on that. Basically asked a question here: what are some common misconceptions about game design you see players complain about that are really a result of being too complex? And basically he goes into like the game is a lot bigger, a bigger behemoth than you realize. There's a lot of intricacies going on, and talks about, you know, when you work on a huge team, you need approvals from people who have no free time, get QA, pass through QA, get approval from third parties like Apple or Google. We've heard this a lot, especially like balance patches not being able to push through, but there's always been like conflicting things on this. Like, we had like the Evolve Shaman during the Doom in the Tomb event, and they said it would take like a month or something to push out the change so they didn't, and we ended up having it for like 2 months. But then we had Galakron Shaman right after that, and it got nerfed within a week. We had Demon Hunter nerfed within a day. So I get there's these checks and balances they have to do, but it always seems to be different depending on the time and the month you ask. So I don't know about this one. Again, this is all behind the scenes stuff, but there have been times where, yeah, nerfs happen within a day, but then they say they couldn't do it for a month. It's really peculiar, but again, this is pure like speculation and conjecture. Not saying he's lying or anything, but it's just interesting to see how things can vary. No question about power creep in Battlegrounds, how 3 overpowered things come in, 1 gets nerfed, the power level keeps rising. I mean, his answer just basically goes into, you know, when you have a live game that's constantly being updated, power creep's natural because you want to make new and exciting things. And, you know, it's just the basic thing. You see it in regular Hearthstone, you get to see it in Battlegrounds, you get to see any mode that's constantly updated. So he kind of goes into a description of that, but nothing too exciting in this category. He was asked, what's your favorite mechanic card that never quite had the power level to see much competitive play? They use Mean Streets of Gadgetzan hand buff as an example, and he said he talked about that and he felt like hand buff was more of just a balance thing. They just didn't make it strong enough. He mentioned Inspire, which a lot of us know is really weak, but they said that basically was by design. They weren't really happy with the design of it, it seems like. So by make it, it's kind of interesting. Seems like a mechanic that they started and then didn't love the design and decided to self-sabotage. I mean, like Free Shaman, I don't know. And he's a random favorite card that didn't see much play is Void Ripper, which actually saw a good amount of play, especially with Spreading Plague was so good. You had like Mossy Horror, Void Ripper. But yeah, it was a cool card. It allowed for interesting stuff, but I think he's discrediting Void Ripper a bit here. It saw a bit more play than that. When designing powerful and even more polarizing cards such as Ticketus, what strategies and tools do you all use in determining balance? As cards of this nature typically incite player frustration, what standards properties are focused in designing these type of cards? He basically answers that, you know, there's types of people that just like these cards. I think he describes them as a mean. He likes that the mean person loves that mean, you know, to destroy a person's deck, and you know, they want to at least give this option to the mean player. And if Ticketus were in the meta of like 20% of decks, he's skeptical that would be good for them, and they probably adjust it like they did with like our Walker Freeze Mage. And I mean, there are the players that love to mill cards. I like to call them degenerates, and I'm kind of one of them, so I get it. And that's what I mean about when I talk about Ticketus not necessarily being horrendous for the game, is because it's not at a great power level, but it really does alienate those type of people that like to play slow decks, and they feel targeted by these mean people that love to do mean things. And it's an interesting balance to have these things in the game. Ticketus is very polarizing. I put it on my most hated cards list for a reason. Would I put that kind of card in the game? Personally, I don't think you put it. I think it's a too convenient a power level, just corrupted, then you just play it. Like, I think Rin was a good example of what you could do for this type of archetype. Like, that mean player got to do the thing, delete someone's deck, but they had to jump through hoops to do it. Whereas a card like Ticketus, you have to play 7 mana card and then it's done, and, you know, not die. So I get that they make these cards, but I think Ticketus is the wrong direction. They should be complete workaround ridiculous cards like Howlfiend, Treachery, and do a bunch of stuff to mill cards. It's like 3-step process. Just corrupting, it's not much of a process, and you get a 6-mana 8/8 to boot. So I agree with their take of putting this stuff in there, but I think you should have to jump through more hoops than just simply a Ticketus type of card. This one I found really interesting. What are some game features, Dust, Econ, Tournament Mode, game modes you'd want in the game but are unable to currently implement? What are some of the challenges of riding when deciding to put these in there? And basically his answer is he'd love to put more esports stuff into the game, like implement direct esports related things. And I've been mentioning that a lot. Like, the put esports stuff in the client can be a big help, not only to promote your esports, to get people invested in participating in it. And something like a tournament mode would definitely help with that. There are other things they could do. He mentions Fortnite in here, but yeah, these are things, again, the devs really want, but again, he says they need the right type of people. And again, it just sounds like there's not enough people, not enough resources to actually put this stuff in, so it's not really there. There's a question about priests. Is there any chance priest card design return to some nice mechanics with healing like we had with Cleric and Akanai, or the direction you want for the class exclusively random value generation? And he answers snarkily, he admits as much, nor playing with priests is exclusively not nice mechanics from now on, thank you for asking. But then he answers seriously, the priest toolkit is pretty wide from a design view. They have random generation, healing, tempo, curve play with dragons, traditional control, removal and big means, or mind control. They're also going to re-explore what Shadow Priest means, so we might see some of that stuff coming back with like damaging and that. And my take on this, I'm going to have a video on Priest. I have one planned, but I think Priest has been a complete and utter failure in their rework. It is just random generation. They can answer with this, there's healing and control and tempo. No, it's random crap. Even the tempo is based around random stuff. And it makes me a little bit worried about the classic rework, that a class that they reworked with Priest their first year, for the most part, people just want it deleted. They can't stand Priest anymore because of everything it represents. So we're going to get into that in another video, but I'm not really sold on this answer. I think Priest has been a real crap show in terms of design. Power level, it's not insane, but in terms of playing against Priest, it's just super unfun. And we'll go into that in a future video, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, I totally am not on board for this answer. Interesting little tidbit. He was asked you, did they anticipate Turtle Mage, the infinite turtle freeze combo mage? And he just said no. And I didn't see anyone predict that one going forward. So again, I don't blame them. And they did nerf it once it kind of became a thing. He was asked what favorite keyword they'd like to potentially revisit in the future. He mentions dual class, and he's basically confirming it'll probably happen. They might have to rebalance it depending, but I think dual class was a big hit. A lot of people loved it, and I think it would be great to bring back. They had tri-class before. They could even try that again, but dual class seemed to be the right spot, and I'm definitely on board for that. I think that's a good idea. He was asked if there's any chance he could rebuy like the Maiev portrait that's no longer available, and they said, yeah, they plan on plating old stuff like they do in the card backs, and no plans currently. Again, I don't like this thing. I don't understand why they just don't pull it a permanent portrait shop, permanent car back shop. You could have it rotate monthly, but at least always have an option to buy a portrait or a card back, because why not? Do you not like money? I don't understand this thinking. It just seems really bizarre to me. Somebody mentioned they think Demon Hunters too many class identities, can just do much stuff, and basically for all the stuff he wants them to be able to do, whether it be like aggro, combo, big demons, they kind of need to give them all that tool set. And even mentions like there isn't even with all this stuff a good controlled Demon Hunter deck. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. They're working out the class. It's going to be a real work in progress. And considering how horrible the start is, and now the fact that it's just a middling tier deck that's you can play, but it's not oppressive, I think they've done a decent job at it. It just the growing pains have been extreme, and I'm not on the complete screw Demon Hunter bandwagon anymore, but again, it definitely was really rough for quite some time. He was asked for the classic reworks. Will us players be getting any compensation for the cards getting rotated? Earlier this week, we heard that the Hall of Fame will be no more, so we're not getting replacement decks. This was the concern I had. He said it's complicated, will be answered soonish. It's a good change. So we'll have to take their word for it, like we did the Battle Pass. Again, skeptical, but hopefully they'll get it right this time. I don't think they want to go through another PR disaster, so at least we have a bit of an update that it's supposed to be a good change. Let's hope it'll be a good change. He was asked, will you redesign dual mode? I think dual mode deserves better and more. He just says Hearthstone's a live service game, and they'll continue to adjust it, plans to do an update soon. In fact, we've heard the same about Arena. We see how Arena is. I don't know how they're going to save duels, and I don't really get much faith in this very short response. Sounds like they'll do a minor balance patch, but I don't know. Duels already seems dead on arrival. One of the more interesting questions to me is, I had a love for Hearthstone from someone that died over the last few years, but I still love to follow the scene. What would be the #1 reason why they never implemented tournament mode? So Iksar says, tournament mode was high profile because we announced it, but the reason was simple and not so normal. We explored a robust new feature, play tested it, couldn't find something we felt was quality release, took a hard look at it, estimate what it would take to change all the things that need to be changed, estimate what we would have to come, on the resource to accomplish that, wasn't worth it to us at the time, and cut the feature, explore their ideas. I hate this answer so much. Like, I get it. They were like, we're going to make a tournament mode. They promised it with apparently no real idea in mind of how they were going to do it. Decided to do it, realized they couldn't do an appropriate job, and just said, screw it. We're not going to do it. It's going to cost too much. That, to me, is just saying we couldn't do our job properly, and you know what, screw it, we're not going to give what we promised. And it's been a sore spot in the community. We still talk about it in 2021. A player actively basically saying here, hint, hint, I would come back if there's a tournament mode. And their answer is, we couldn't figure it out. We didn't really like it, so we ditched it. I really don't love that answer. It's disheartening. I wish they would have, figured it out, come up with something, hire somebody who's done something like that before, get it done, because it would have done so much good for the esports scene, the in-game scene, so many things. Like, it's just such a empty area in Hearthstone not to have a tournament mode, and for them just to openly admit, we couldn't do it, we couldn't figure it out, so we just bailed on it. I think that sucks. I really do. And I'll leave off with one that I found to be pretty interesting. Was looking back at Lackeys, they're about to rotate. Do you feel they introduced too many situations where they're changed of discover, nearly infinite value decks? You guys know how much I hate that. And he said if you could go back in time, they would take out the Dragon Discover Lackey, which is the one that broke Lackeys for me. He says generations got a little wider than then, but it's not a forever thing. And next year we should see less. So at least they're listening to that. And there's a whole bunch of other questions I didn't go over. I went over a bunch here, gave my opinions, but Iksar said he's going to be making this a Wednesday thing. So if you want to follow him on Twitter, I'll link his Twitter below. Maybe you can get a question in here and ask. I will note though, he was asked several times about Wild, about balance changes. They ignored every single Wild question, and I am not a fan of that. The Wild community deserves a little bit better than that. So Iksar, if you get asked about Wild next week, please answer it. The meta's a mess, and we would love any feedback. Please, we'd appreciate it. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Have a great day, and stay salty, my friends.